You know, I didn't want to talk about Jessica Yaniv, but I guess I have to thanks to a request from Zalrock Chaos. Let's roll the intro and begin the suffering. Alrighty, if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed, then by the end of the video you'll know if you want to. And if you do, please do so. I would like to make it a goal in January to try to hit 30,000 subscribers, but I recognize that with my current growth, that's probably an impossibility. Anywho, onto the fan art. First of all, we have this Pumpkin Suris by I Am Oddity, and then the face I'm going to make by the end of this episode by Kirby, and then finally a Rule 63 Suris by GenMod Catgirl. As always, everyone, thank you very much for your fan art submissions, and let's get right into the video.
Over the past day, I have lost immense faith in Twitter. Now, perhaps you lost it a long time ago, but I never considered myself to be someone who was so edgy or breaking the rules in such a way that I would be banned, much less be banned 8 times within 24 hours.
Well, that doesn't in itself mean anything. Terms of use violations can be incredibly benign. Problem is that you agree to those terms of use whenever you hop onto any platform.
Now, why was I banned? I didn't break any laws, I didn't utter any hate speech.
Okay, but breaking laws doesn't necessarily mean anything when you're dealing with the terms of service of a private corporation, nor does hate speech for that matter. All that matters is what's considered right or wrong based on their terms of service, as it is their platform.
I didn't do anything that would be outside the realm of what a normal reporter would do. I simply spoke the truth.
Well, that in and of itself is outside of what a lot of people who call themselves reporters do. Moreover, the truth oftentimes is a matter of perspective, if we're not going to jump down the rabbit hole of philosophy on the definition of truth at least. But let's see what you mean by telling the truth.
I was relaying information that viewers at home wanted to know, particularly in this case about the trial, the court appearance of
Jessica
Yaniv. You might know Jonathan Yaniv by the name Jessica Yaniv. I'm going to call him who he is because we're on YouTube right now. If this was Twitter, I would be sanctioned and suspended until I removed this content and apologized for it. Until I agreed that what I said just there by calling this individual Jonathan Yaniv was wrong, dangerous, and harmful.
Well, it is wrong, dangerous, and harmful, but you probably don't understand that, and I will lay that out for you here in a bit, after I've heard your case. Let me go ahead and let the audience know, though, that Jessica Yaniv is a piece of garbage person. There is no two ways around it. They're an absolutely abhorrent individual that have partaken in several actions, many allegedly including children, that I deem as completely and totally reprehensible. But as you are a public figure on a public platform, there are some rules that you need to understand about the game. That is, you have to understand what the impact of your words actually lead to. So, let's continue.
You know what's harmful? Jonathan Yaniv talking to underage girls in sexually explicit ways. There's numerous allegations about things that are even worse than that. You know what else is damaging? How Jonathan Yaniv vindictively took young immigrant women to the Human Rights Tribunal to throw them out of business because they wouldn't wax his balls.
You're right. All of those things are harmful, and Jessica deserves to be reprimanded for every single one of them, whether that be socially or legally. But here's the problem. I know on your channel and on your Twitter it says that your name is Keen, and it doesn't really matter if I can pronounce that correctly or not, because now your name is Martha. I know you say that your name is Keen, but in reality, your name is Martha. It doesn't matter what you say it is, even though your name is an identifier that you yourself get to pick. Your first name essentially being the default that your parents give you. Your entire identity is wrapped up in your name. This means that regardless of what anyone wants to say, your name is a self-identifier. But if you want to play the game that you get to be the sole arbiter of what other people's names are, then you are officially Martha henceforth. Because I'm perfectly fine playing the game by your rules as long as you're willing to play by the ones you've set forth. Now, Martha, the reason that it matters that you called Jessica Jonathan is because it means you set up a terrible standard. While in private conversation or in any other case, if you want to call them whatever you want, by all means, it doesn't matter. In public conversation, like on Twitter and on YouTube, what you're essentially doing is saying that trans people have to earn the right to use their name. This is because trans people are in the unique situation where their methods of self-identification can be taken away by other people. When you set the standard that if a trans person messes up, you get to dead name them, you've taken away somebody's inherent right to a name and turned it into a privilege, one that you magically get the ability to revoke. Nobody gave you that power, but you have, for some strange reason, claimed it for yourself. And because trans people are in this unique position where their identities can be stripped from them by outside sources for reasons, I guess, it serves to treat them as something completely different. When you dead name a trans person, regardless of what they've done, you're sending a clear message to every other trans person whether or not they've done anything wrong. Their name is a privilege that you can strip away, and thus you end up alienating these people. Please do note that I'm not saying you shouldn't condemn Jessica for things that she's done. By all means, do so. She's a piece of garbage and deserves every bit of it. But don't, through performative cruelty, send a clear and concise message to your trans audience that they're not wanted because you view them as having different rights than other people, the mere right to a name being one of them. Because as human beings, our name has so much of our identity wrapped in it that when you take that away, you serve to strip people of their humanity. In fact, a fairly common dehumanizing tactic is to strip a human being of their name and reduce them down to a number. Calling them a name they no longer identify with, a name that may even have trauma attached to it, is another public dehumanization tactic. In your persecution of Jessica, who should be persecuted, because of the way you go about it, you end up making anyone else in your audience feel like they are justified in persecuting other trans people in the same way, regardless of whether or not they've done something wrong. This is the power and responsibility of having a public platform. Alright, that was long-winded as hell. Let's get on to the tweets.
Now, since, again, this is YouTube, and I won't be suspended for showing you the offending tweets, here they are. Now, each of these tweets were removed for a subtle reason, and I'm going to break each and every one of them down for you so that you can understand how Twitter is silencing free speech.
Oh boy, they're not silencing free speech, they are deplatforming you. Your free speech is still perfectly viable to be heard by at least 1.5 million people. Not to mention, Twitter is a private corporation. They have the ability to do this. Free speech, on the other hand, is a legal issue. If you want uncontrolled free speech, please go to Poll or BitChute. Wallow around in the garbage with everybody else.
Now, the first tweet that was offensive to the social justice warriors at Twitter was this. This tweet is what got me suspended. It was what we call a scene setter. I was setting the scene to everyone at home so that they knew what was going on at the provincial courthouse in Surrey, British Columbia. Jonathan Yaniv was appearing in court yesterday so that he could face the music for holding a prohibited weapon and brandishing it, in fact, on a YouTube live stream with Blair White. Now, this is the tweet. Breaking. Jessica Jonathan Yaniv is at the BC Provincial Court right now. Yaniv faces 2 counts for violating the Firearms Act. The maximum sentence a judge can hand down is 6 months in prison for each count. I'll be live tweeting as I'm able. That's all I said. What got me thrown into Twitter jail was saying the word Jonathan. Twitter says that that is dead naming someone. It is an egregious offense to humanity.
Yes, by definition it is, because dead naming, especially when purposeful, has only one intention, and that is to dehumanize a person. Their human identity is wrapped in the name they chose for themselves, or whatever name they personally identify with. When you try to take that away from them, you are also taking away that identity. Likewise, a human being can't control the name that their identity is attached to. They can try, through performative action, to build their identity around a new name, or build it around their current name, but ultimately no one gets to control what name they identify with personally. Your subconscious is in control of all of that. As a result, when you dead name someone, you are, in effect, taking away that portion of their humanity, that all-important part of their person that is wrapped up in the name. This may not be intentional, and in fact, in many ways, it is usually not intentional. However, the end result is still the same. You actually can cause psychological damage to someone by dead naming them, especially when you have an audience of 1.5 million people who are willing to echo and parrot everything you say. At that point, it's not one individual dead naming someone. It's an entire group, a group who you influenced.
Now, the egregious thing about this particular incident was that I was quoting the name as it appeared on the official court registry in Surrey, British Columbia. I was literally relaying exact information as it appeared in the court docket. There was no rhetoric in this tweet, there was no twist, there was no spin. I was stating the facts, but apparently facts are not allowed on Twitter anymore. I didn't think I would see the day when Twitter would not allow official court documents to be published.
Alright, then let's
on
talk
its
about
platform.
other information that can appear on official court paperwork. And let's bring about a hypothetical tweet that could be posted using this paperwork. There is some court paperwork that can include the address of a person who is going to court. Now, let's say you've got 1.5 million people who already don't like the person you're going to be talking about. You give no spin, no call to action, no rhetoric, but you do post the court document publicly. This shows their address. And even though it's a legal court document, and it is technically public information, you still have doxed them. Now, this hypothetical audience that is already angry at the person that you are doxing, they now know where this person lives. You may have just endangered this person's life. Again, there's no rhetoric, no spin, no nothing. All you've done is posted public information. But in a consequentialist sense, you have inevitably caused harm. You might not have intended to, or you might have intended to, and you know that this milquetoast stance that you're taking is a self-defense one for legal reasons. Now, granted, this is all happening in the world of the hypothetical. This is not me saying that you have publicly doxed somebody. This hypothetical is to show that there is inadvertent damage that can come from simply stating, quote, public information, unquote, when you have a sufficiently large platform. And I've already gone over all the ways in which dead naming actually causes damage to multiple people. Also, if you were to make the case that your intent was not to dead name, the existence of this video is evidence against that, because it is in this video that you showcase your full intent to do so. Alrighty, continuing on.
Here's a second tweet that got me thrown into Twitter jail, and this tweet wasn't even from yesterday. It was from my coverage of Jonathan Yaniv a few months back. It was after Jonathan Yaniv and his mother assaulted me, a journalist, asking questions about his conduct when he was A, talking to underage children, and B, trying to have the businesses of immigrant women shut down. Here, I don't do what Twitter would call dead naming. I refer to this individual as Jessica. In retrospect, I wish I didn't even extend that courtesy.
The fact that you view it as a courtesy, Martha, as opposed to a default, explains half the problem, but not with this particular tweet.
Now, it is a fact, Jonathan Yaniv has a pair of testicles. He has male reproductive organs. He has a prostate. He has an X and Y chromosome in every single cell in his very large body.
Are you certain about that one? Because Klinefelters exists. Intersex people exist. I wasn't aware that you had actually taken the time to map out all of this. Moreover, you're currently talking about Jessica's sex, which is not the same as their gender. I know it's really confusing that these two things are different. In fact, it's so confusing that it's not confusing at freaking all. Gender, socially constructed identity. Sex, biological classification.
But to Twitter, you can't say that. Not that I even really said it here, it was more of a play on words, but even joking is not allowed on Twitter. Now, to add more gasoline to the dumpster fire that is Twitter safety, I was also thrown off of Twitter yesterday for this tweet. It was a close shave, but I'm fine. Yaniv's mother pressed her hands against his face and urged him, according to the mom, to be quiet. Now, this was as Jonathan Yaniv left the courtroom. I asked Jonathan Yaniv if he would be pleading guilty to the charges placed against him. He lost it. He launched himself towards me in a testosterone-fueled rage, and a sheriff actually intervened and pushed Yaniv away from me. We know Jonathan Yaniv likes to assault journalists. This is his MO, and thankfully there was a sheriff there to intervene and stop him. Jonathan Yaniv has hit my colleagues, and his mother has hit me. But the interesting thing about this tweet isn't that story. It's the fact that Jonathan's own mother refers to him as him.
Okay, but even if that's the case, then that's an issue between Jessica and her mother. That has nothing to do with you. So any justification saying, well, the parents use this name, doesn't mean anything. There are parents who dead name their kids all the time. That doesn't suddenly justify your own measures of performative cruelty. Moreover, it could have just as easily been a slip-up. If you know someone for years as one gender, it can be hard to rewire your brain to call them something else. And in the heat of the moment, things like that can slip. Hell, I've done it. It doesn't make it right, but it does make us human and flawed. So again, like I said, any justification of you dead naming because the mother did it at one point, or even if it happened at multiple points, isn't actually justification. Names are a method of self-identification.
Watch this video of my colleague David Menzies asking questions outside of their condo in Langley, British Columbia, and listen to what the mother says.
Over now! Are you crazy? That's assault. Go away.
You just smashed your cane over my head.
No, he did not touch you.
He did.
Now, in this particular tweet that I posted yesterday, I was simply reiterating what the mother said to her son. That is too much for Twitter.
No, you wanted to dead name purposefully, as evidenced by literally the existence of this video right now and your justifications you've used within this video. What you're doing is hiding behind circumstance as a shield. Had the mom not dead named Jessica, you would have found some other reason to call Jessica Jonathan.
Now, we are well aware that there is a brigade of SJWs out there looking to protect Jonathan Yaniv, looking to protect anyone who is misgendered or dead named. Now, these tweets have all been removed from Twitter for subtle differences in one key issue. Twitter will not allow any dissent when it comes to the topic of transgenderism, especially when it comes to fake transgenders like Jonathan Yaniv.
So, you and I can both agree that Jessica Yaniv is a flaming bag of horse crap. We can agree that they deserve to be punished for many of the things that they've done. And I'm sure we can also agree that transgender people are a marginalized minority group. When we have marginalized minority groups, usually companies, or even in some cases governments, will enact laws to protect them, because elsewise they become persecuted for being marginalized minority groups. This is reality. People are cruel. This is normal. Jessica is a horrible person, but they're a horrible person who just so happens to be trans. You don't get to take that away from them. You don't get to say whether or not they're trans. You can say that they're a danger to children. You can say that they're a horrible person who deserves prison. You can say all of these things, and I would agree with you. But when you're dealing with a marginalized group, you cannot then say, aha, you're no longer trans because I don't like you. In the same way that I can't tell somebody that they're no longer gay because I don't like them. Trans, like many other things, is a method of self-identification. It is up to the individual if they identify that way. And you can call me an SJW all you want. I have some people who call me an SJW because I happen to have an interest in social issues. And then I have people who won't call me an SJW because SJW has a lot of negative connotations on it, and they don't think I fit the description that those connotations are attached to. Either way, I don't really care.
Someone who uses this title of transgenderism as a cloak to shield themselves and insulate themselves so that they can practice what looks like a simple fetish to get close to young girls in bathrooms.
We can definitely agree that there's a fetishization happening here. Jessica's literally put out tweet after tweet after tweet fetishizing having a period. But might it not also be the case that there's a fetishization happening and they are also legitimately trans? Again, it seems to me that the stripping away of someone's individual identity is simply a matter of hyperbole that's used to engage in cruelty. I recognize that your audience probably gets off to that kind of thing, but if we're on the topic of fetishes, that's kind of a weird one.
That is who Twitter is defending. Twitter will never be a platform that enables free speech as long as they allow creeps like Jonathan Yaniv to control the dialogue that happens on this international platform.
Well, it's a good thing that Twitter isn't actually a, quote, free speech platform, unquote. They don't market themselves as such, and as a result, expecting such is kind of unrealistic. Now, were they a public works administration or something like that, then we might be having a different conversation. But they aren't. So we're not. They, as a platform, get to determine whether or not they think that any particular speech is harmful to the people who engage with their platform. And while I think that Jessica deserves to be kicked off the platform because she has shown to be a literal danger to the public, due to the millions of people you have that watch your content, I could make a case that you probably need to be kicked off the platform as well, since you are causing damage also. And if you want to make the case that Jessica's specifically affecting kids, and special plead in that case, there are kids who are trans. They're affected by the things you post as well. Note, I'm using kid to denote anybody under the age of 18 here. Anywho, that's it for their video, and that's officially it for mine as well. If you enjoyed this, then let me know in the comment section below. If you really enjoyed it, then you could leave a like and share it with your friends. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you haven't subscribed already, if you enjoyed this video, then please do so. If you want to support me and what I do, then there's a link to Patreon in the description, as well as an affiliate link and a merch store if you would like some material goods for what you spend your money on. And with all that, I'm out. Insert end of video tagline here.